In this video, we're going to look at how to expose graph inputs to create custom parameters, which you can use to artistically control and dial in your material's physical characteristics and components from either within InstaMAT or within our integrated plugins. All right, so here you can see that I have this sort of unkept, dirty, mossy brick ground material. And what I like to do is start giving it some procedural functionality, some controllable parameters that I can use. And so I'm going to show you how I can do that here, and I can add it to this graph, to this project that I'm working on. But first, let me walk through a little bit of how this material is being constructed. So first off, you can see we have this brick path node. If I preview this, you can see this is my brick path material that I'm starting off with. And this material was actually created using our materialize image project type. I've taken a photo of some bricks here and I've converted it into a PBR material. And if you'd like to learn more about how to do that, how to use the materialize image project, check out our videos on our YouTube channel. And so what I've done here is I've also taken this mud fresh wet material, and this is one of the materials that comes standard with our InstaMAT library. It ships with InstaMAT here. And so what I can do is I can blend these two materials together using the material blend height node. So if I go ahead and preview the output of this node here, you can see I've blended together the mud and the bricks, and you can see how the mud is now filling in the gaps here, and it's blending with this, this brick material that I've created. And so in addition to that, I've also blended in some mossy stones here as well. So I've just used another material blend height node here, and I've just added them in. Again, you can see I can adjust this top offset parameter to choose how much of this material I'd like to blend in and come through. And then finally, what I've done here is I've used a material effect water node to just quickly add some water here as well. I can just increase or decrease the water level. And so these are the parameters that I'd like to adjust from the graph level, that I'd like to expose here in this material. So what I like to do is make it really easy to add more or less water, more or less dirt and moss, and adjust these characteristics of the material very easily, all from the graph level. And we can do that by exposing these parameters. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this icon up here. So right now you can see we have these blue connection lines. We also have this blue line underneath all these nodes. And this signifies that I'm currently in link category mode. So if I go ahead and click the link icon here at the top, you can see that what we've been doing is working in a mode that combines all of these material connections, these related connections together, so that I can easily start blending these materials together. It's really useful link category mode. But now what I want to do is I want to see all of the parameters that I can work with here in the graph, because the first way that I'm going to show you how to expose a parameter is right here in the canvas. So you can see I have this material blend height node, and the way to add more or less dirt here is by adjusting this top offset parameter. So one way to expose a parameter, if I go here in the canvas and I choose expand to see all of these inputs that I have here right in the canvas, is dragging a connection right off that top offset and letting go to bring up quick search. And you can see it says expose top offset as graph input. So graph inputs are public, and you can see we can expose it as a local variable, which is private just within the graph itself. In this case, I want to do a graph input, but I'm going to call it dirt. Just go ahead and hit enter there. So now we have our dirt, our mud. If I want to rename it, I can go ahead and just go to the graph object editor here, double click this. Maybe instead of dirt, I'll call it mud instead. And now you can see I can just adjust this particular component of my material here just from this input here. And I can get to this by clicking on the graph to be on the graph level here, and then I can adjust this. And so I want to do the same thing. Let's go ahead and collapse this. I want to do the same thing for the mossy stones, but let's take a look at another way how we can expose the parameter. If I click on this material blend height node for the muddy bricks and the mossy stones, again, I want to adjust this top offset, but instead of doing it right here in the canvas, what I can do is right click on the parameter itself and choose expose as input parameter. And you can see it connects it here. I can put this wherever I'd like to. This is that exposed parameter. It's connected to this top offset. And again, I can rename this. I'll call it moss. So now I can go ahead and adjust the moss and the mud. And the last parameter that I'd like to expose here is the water here. So if I go again, I can click on material effect water. Now I could go ahead and expose it with the other two ways that I've shown you so far, but let me show you a third way, which is kind of a longer way to do it, but you can do this any way that you'd like here. If I go ahead and click on the graph level, you can see we can see all the inputs that we're working on. I can manually add one here by clicking this plus button. Now it asks what type of input would you like to use? What kind of data information are you manipulating? Well, because we're working with this sort of pink icon here, this pink connection point, I know that requires a float. So I'm going to type in float, and you can see we have float 32 here, and it creates a new input parameter here for me to adjust. And so I can rename it. I'm going to call it water. And you can see by default, it's giving me this spin box parameter. In this case, I'd actually like a slider like my other parameters. So I can right click on it and choose change UI control type to slider. So now I have a slider to control the water, but you can see it's not hooked up to anything yet. So what I'm going to do is expand the parameters I have here on my material effect water node. And then I'm going to go ahead and just drag this new parameter that we just made into the canvas. You can see it becomes a node, and I can connect this to the water level. So now I can adjust this water parameter, and it's going to control the water level here as well. So now this is really great here. If I go ahead and zoom out, I'll just hit F to focus on everything. You can see I've chosen where I want to expose each of these parameters. And now I can go through and let's say I don't want really any mud. I can lower the moss and I just want some watery bricks here. I can do that, or I can get rid of the water. Let's bring up a little bit of mud. Let's increase the moss just a little bit. Maybe I change my mind. Let's add a little bit of water. So this is really powerful. Now I can start art directing and customizing this material that I've built here, all here in the element graph, and I can utilize these exposed parameters. Now what's nice is I can utilize these exposed parameters pretty much anywhere. So if I go ahead and create a new element graph here, and I go ahead and just drag in that unkept brick path material that we've created, if I just zoom in, I can right click and preview this as a 3D material. And again, if I go ahead and just save everything here, I can adjust these inputs. So I can, let's say we want no water, we want lots of mud, and let's add just a tiny bit more moss. And there you go. So you can see that I can utilize these parameters that I've created in different projects within InstaMAT, but I can also utilize these parameters in other applications too with our integrated plugins. So for example, if we have the integrated plugin for Unreal Engine, I can bring in this material and apply it to an object, let's say a path that I'm working on in my environment, and then I can go ahead and dynamically tweak how much mud or moss or water there is right there on the fly in my program of choice. So exposing these graph inputs is a really powerful way to take advantage of the procedural capabilities that InstaMAT has to offer. By exposing these graph inputs, you can give artistic control to anyone who has access to your material. And there's a lot more that you can do with these parameters. By utilizing the graph variable editor, you can do things like setting a minimum and maximum range, organize your parameters into categories, and also set visibility expressions, which allows you to hide and show parameters when they become useful. Now, if you'd like to learn more about graph inputs or the graph variable editor, check out our YouTube channel. Here we have an ever-growing library of content teaching you the ins and outs of InstaMAT. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, drop us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. For the latest news about InstaMAT, please visit our website and follow us on Twitter. You can find all the links in the video description below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.